So we're here with Hamish, the owner of the M535i. Hamish, tell us how long you've had the car.
Well, I've actually always wanted one of these since I was about 10 years old. I was always obsessed with the M models from BMW, and as a kid in the 80s I always had posters of them on my bedroom wall. But the E12 M535i, being particularly rare, was one that I always promised myself that one day, when I had the money and when I found a good one, I would invest. This particular car I purchased in January 2010, but it had actually been owned previously for some years by a friend of mine who had actually let me drive the car a few times before I bought it from him.
Being your first classic, what's the experience been like and what have you enjoyed the most?
Well, of course, classic cars are a very different ownership experience from owning a modern car. You have to be a little bit more patient with them, but they give so much pleasure. I really feel involved when I'm driving this car. The steering is so direct, it's almost like a go-kart. The gearbox is so close, it's so tight, and the engine makes such a fantastic noise when it's driving. It really is such fun to drive, whether it's around town, pootling along, or whether it's out on the country roads where you're giving it a blast. And one of the best things is that so many people come up and want to talk to you about the car because they remember those cars from when they were younger in the 80s.
How have you maintained the car?
For me, it's extremely important that a car like this is maintained using proper original BMW parts and is serviced by somebody who knows what they're doing. I have used Munich Legends down in Sussex for many years, not only on this car but also on other BMWs that I've owned, and I believe that they are the best independent BMW specialist in the UK, and they're not paying me to say that. They have always done work on this car, and in fact the mechanic who does the work for them on the car is the same guy who back in the 80s, when they were a main dealer and by complete coincidence actually sold this very car new, he did the pre-inspection check and sign-off for this car when it was sold in 1981.
Have you had any memorable trips and standout moments with the car?
I've had so many trips with this car. It's a car I use regularly. I've driven it all over the UK, up to Scotland, but I think for me the best trip was when 2 summers ago I took it across to Germany with some friends, down into Bavaria, the home of BMW, and into the Austrian Alps. It was a hot time in August, but the car didn't skip a beat. It was such fun on the autobahn and on the country roads and the mountain passes, and it was great to take it back to the country that it originally came from and to get so many positive comments from many, many Germans who came over to me when it was parked and wanted to talk to me about it.
And I understand it's even been photographed professionally.
It has been several times. It was borrowed by the Top Gear magazine team a couple of years ago when they were doing a special edition on the history of the M cars, and they took it up to Scotland and did a fantastic shoot with it together with a couple of other iconic BMW M models. And it's also been used at least twice by BMW Car magazine for features.
So what's the reason for sale?
Well, it's difficult to part with this car because it was my first classic, but I do have other cars that I want to own, and I only have limited space and limited time to drive them. So sadly, this is time to let somebody else who will lavish some love on this car have some fun in it, and so I'm afraid this is the time to move on.
Thanks for your time, Hamish.
Thank you.